every deadly sin is bad, but they are all made significantly worse if you add pride onto that.
He also does talk about just not even the religious aspect of pride, but the more functional societal pressures of it. 100 years later, and it's still spot on. Oh, Lord.
Literally, he says in parentheses by taking our correspondent course, things are the same.
It's the exact...
Humans are the same. I am convinced that...
Welcome, everyone, to the Toot Around podcast. My name is Richard.
My name is Austin.
Today, we're talking about G.K. Chesterton's essay, If I Only Had One Sermon to Preach. This essay is Chesterton talking about the nature of pride, why it is actually considered the deadliest of sins, the first sin among all. That, what does it truly mean? The colloquial definition versus the biblical definition. How so many people today would maybe, through their own words,
I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of you.
How is it the philosophy of pride actually used and practiced? And that it is an amazing essay. It answered many of the questions I had in my own head about the nature of this. I'm stoked to talk about it with you, Austin.
It's our first ever Chesterton that we've read at all. And this essay itself came out, or was written in roughly 1928, 1929, 100 years ago at this point. And the reason we picked this particular essay is we wanted to read a Chesterton, and we know he had 5,000 something essays, books that we have to read too, and was looking up what's some of his best essays. And on some Reddit thread, someone mentioned this was their favorite. So that's why we picked this out. And as soon as we found out it was about pride, I was immediately had to read this thing, because when we talked about the book Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and throughout a lot of our videos, if people know this about me, I've always had a tough time contemplating with that topic of pride. I have a tough time saying to somebody, I'm proud of you, because it even can sound condescending. We don't have a good word or alternative, because on the one hand, the pride is something that is seen as a sin. If you have this ego to you, all these sinful and awful things associated with it. And then on the opposite end, we use it so much in colloquial language, and we mean good when we say it sometimes. So we don't have the correct verbiage. And this entire thing that we're reading, this is from Chesterton, who converted to Catholicism before he wrote this, and it's got many religious themes. So you're going to hear us talk about this as a sin from Chesterton's point of view. And we've been on a lot of...
He also does talk about just not even the religious aspect of pride, but the more functional societal pressures of it. And that ultimately, that many people will say things about pride, but if you look at society around us, that it functions on pride being a societal what would be the right word? Societally shamed for being prideful, even if we may use the word in multiple different contexts.
Yes, I was going to lob that up just to say it comes from this Catholic point of view, but this is applicable and I think interesting for anybody to read. It's on that topic. If you just find that interesting at all, which I very much did. This is the type of essay I have been searching for my whole life, practically. It's always been something nagging at me. I have this. I wanted it to be explained or talked about in a way that made sense. And I learned many things from this essay, and also learned that everybody's right about how amazing Chesterton writes. Because man, can he write. We'll be doing more stuff on him. It's just very thought-provoking. Whatever you go in expecting from this, it's what, a 20-minute read? How long did it take you?
If you read it once through, like you read every word once, 20 minutes, maybe. Yeah. I had to reread sentences. I did not. I took my time with this one and had to go back and all this. So it did take me closer to 40, 45, something like that.
Yes. Like what? Because as I was reading it, was quoting and putting notes on things just to make sure that I was understanding it correctly. And by the end, I guess your expectations going in, knowing it was about pride, you are as interested in this topic. So by the end of the essay, did you get a lot of takeaways as well?
Oh yeah, 100%. We both are similar of mind on the nature of pride. Like, part of us deep down kind of knows just there's something wrong about it and trying to avoid it, but not understanding the word and how it's used today, and ultimately kind of confusing us of like, well, is pride really a sin? Is this more just a religious context? Is there some type of deeper, more philosophical meaning behind it? Is it not applicable anymore?
Right.
What about it? Because I can think of so many contexts where, like, the statement, like, I am proud of my son.
Mm-hmm.
How could you ever say that is a sinful statement? And this essay really helped me out.
Definitely. And every time I was reading this as well, I can sometimes, when you read something from someone with a point of view, so knowing Chesterton's Roman Catholic, or take the opposite end, knowing some atheists as well, when I'm reading it, I'm always kind of nagging, going, all right, I get their point of view, but I want them to logically address the thing that's in my head. That what would the atheist say to this, or on the vice versa, if you're reading something, that what would the religious person say about this? And what Chesterton does a fantastic job of doing, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking in my head, yeah, but what about this answer? I'm saying in my head, I'm going, yeah, but what about this? And then the next sentence, next paragraph, he would cover that, and I go, thank good. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, at least he addresses what's nagging in my head, and then explains this is why he has his point of view. And so without further ado, let's get into the essay. And you guys can read it if you want to read it right before watching the rest of this. It's just getting right into it.
Free to find online.
We'll link it.
We'll link it down below, but
description below.
It is a free thing you can read online.
And if you want to have some conversations with us about books, and we had a 5-hour chat 2 days ago, was it, or 3 days ago? I can't remember how many days ago, but it was a 5-hour long chat about one of the last essays we did, The Death of the Author by Roland Barthes, which Richard and I are not a fan of that one. But we had a 5-hour chat with our patrons on the Discord. So if you want to join in our Patreon, link down below. That was a ton of fun. And honestly, any type of essays we do like this, anybody who wants to talk about us with this stuff, I am down. Yeah. I live for this. Okay, so without further ado, it's called If I Only Had One Sermon to Preach, and the essay starts off, I'll start with this quote, and then let's go from there. So Chesterton says, "The more I see of existence, and especially of modern practical and experimental existence, the more I am convinced of the reality of the old religious thesis that all evil began with some attempt at superiority." He starts off with that.
Mm-hmm. Now, right off the bat, it's an interesting place to start because it maybe starts to go the idea of like hierarchy being innately the root of all evil. Is kind of what I was thinking of in the beginning of this essay, but I don't think it is that. I don't think it's exactly that action. It's the focus of... So I didn't know where this was actually going to start, but what do you take that statement to be? Is that... Because that's something I have heard before. Mm-hmm. And so this is a statement I've heard from my Catholic and religious friends. Mm-hmm. How did you come to understand it before?
This term of superiority?
Yeah.
I take
pride, superiority, and that's being the root of all like evils in the world.
Yeah. Taking it from what he's addressing here. Now, what I know of history, and speaking to our Catholic friends as well, shout out Scott, shout out Dom, and I'm going to have some anecdotes from Dom later on that really helped me with this essay, and from Scott that helped me with this essay a lot. So the term of using superiority there, it seems like this is a response, and what he says, he's talking about the modern person, the modern man back then, and it's so interesting to see how it's the same today, that we are dealing with the same issues in many of those ways, which we'll get to. But by that, I think he's talking about the Übermensch, the superior man, the person who has this ego and this superiority above others. And specifically in this time period, he's writing this between World War I and World War II, where pride got the entire world into a lot of horrific events. And so he is talking before World War II comes about, and it gets into this at the end of the essay, which we'll get to as well. But the pride of man, the pride of German back in the 1930s, of what did that lead the world to, and how this self-superiority is really the root of all these evils. And I'm gonna step one step further. I like where he gets into the essay of talking about how every single vice you look at, all the other 7 deadly sins, every deadly sin is bad, but they are all made significantly worse if you add pride onto that. That pride and makes all of those things even more evil and less appealing, whether it's a religious sense or not. It just makes that person even more despicable. Whereas the person that's just gluttonous, they're gluttonous, but you don't hate the man that is just gluttonous.
I really loved this quote over there.
Yeah.
Pretty early on, Chesterton says, "It would be easy to point out that even cowardice as a mere collapse of the nerves is better than cowardice as an ideal and theory of the intellect, and that a really imaginative person will have more sympathy with men who, like cattle, yield to what they know is panic, than with a certain particular type of prig who preaches something that he calls peace. Men hate priggishness because it is the driest form of pride." And this struck home with me of like how I view a lot of the confusion of peace, like cowardice and actual civility and peace. There's a different type of person, of someone who is peaceful by nature because they're capable of not being peaceful and they make the choice to do it, versus the person who is doing it out of this sly intellectual of like ultimately trying to justify their cowardice rather than just being afraid. There's something about that which spoke to me personally, at least, of the number of people you've met and come across of someone who just generally panics, and it can sometimes be endearing. It's not a terrible thing, but it's another thing when someone tries to justify their own cowardice as a virtue. And then it's like, no, you don't. And it's just intolerable. It's disgusting behavior.
We have friends, and everybody does. So, you have your bachelors, let's call them. People that fall into lust often. And we have friends that, one night stands, and that's their thing, go to bars, and hookup culture exists, right? So lust can exist. I'm using lust in the term of just, people, they'll sleep around more, not serious about relationships. It happens. Mm-hmm. And that so he goes on to explain that each of these types of deadly sins, why they're made worse is, think about somebody like that's rather lustful, and you're friends with them, and you're like, they're more of that type of person they are. They've got so many great qualities. Lust, I wish they fall too much into lust. You'd hope that they would come around, But imagine that type of person is lustful and they're proud of it. That's their personality, and they see that as a virtue. Yep. And they walk around and wear that on their sleeves, like, I sleep around with everybody. It's a great thing to do. It makes that thing that's already a vice, and to degrees, worse.
Yeah, 100%. I remember when we had a conversation with a friend that this literally happened of when we were chatting about the failure of his relationship.
Oh,
you remember the conversation of like,
do not say his name.
No, of course not. But first half of the conversation was basically like, hey, we get it. The breakup, you were looking for this thing. She wasn't, like, totally get it. Understand. You were horny. You had a thing. You didn't see this going long term, and so you split because understandable.
He was a horny guy.
Yeah, we get it. All right. So sad to hear of it. And then he continued on of trying to like self-aggrandize of like, oh no, I was truly in love. Why couldn't we have had just these beautiful few months before she's literally deported because I won't marry her?
Oh yeah, because that's what the story was. Because she wanted to get married, and he wasn't willing to do that. And he was trying
to make it like this beautiful thing of love in the moment, and I'm just, Jesus, no, it's none of that. What are you trying to do? Like, you're trying to make it a virtue.
Do you love her, or are you just lusting for? You want to lust for 2 more months?
You just want to continue having sex for another couple months. That's literally it. And the fact, like, oh, I truly do love her. Then why don't you, I don't know, marry her so she doesn't have to leave the country? No, you don't actually love her. That's what it is. That's all. And you know what? It's understandable. I get that. It's the self-aggrandizing. It's the turning it into some weird perverted virtue and thinking you're virtuous in this and not understanding her point of view was one of the wildest conversations I've had with friends.
Top 5 conversation. Top 4.
That half of the table was having
a blast.
A different time than the other half of the table.
Our half was having a blast.
Oh, no.
I had a great time.
Like, it at first started with friends being, respectful, like, hey, you'll get hey, there's plenty of fish in the sea, and, like, just idle conversation. And then it just turned into, like, pointed, directed, like, inquisitor.
60% into that conversation, I turned and gave you a look and went, "Oh yeah, we're thinking the same thing." And then we started talking to him. Anyways,
that was one fun highlight of our friend group. That was a fun one. Top experience for me.
Fun might be the wrong word. Again, the
fascinating.
Fascinating is the word.
Incredibly fascinating conversation.
So, but before Chesterton even gets into explaining how these vices become already worse with pride involved, he sets up this scenario about a pub or just a public place, and he sets up this scenario where average people are in this public place, and he explains that what the theologian would say, somebody like Chesterton would say in a religious sense, sometimes will come across to the average person as very preachy. It'll come across to the average person as, all right, deacon, all right, priest, I'm at a public place, stop preaching at me. And it's this thing that can seem as if it's a bit removed because you can feel like you're being spoken down to. And this kind of mysticism, when you talk about God and bring God involved, people can sometimes be off-put by that. And Chesterton's talking about this as an Englishman 100 years ago, which is very true today too. As soon as you get the God word involved, it's okay, all right, you're preaching at me. But he starts to explain that what the theologian is saying about pride is something that we all do in practice anyways.
A philosophy not necessarily in words, but in action. Yes. And I loved that. Loved his setup with this.
Yes.
Do you want to continue?
What the common person would think you're speaking a foreign language, for example, of if the chatty person came into that public space, and imagine that chatty person came into public space and said this: theologians are of the opinion that it was one of the superior angelic intelligences seeking to become the supreme object of worship instead of finding his natural joy in worshiping, which dislocated the providential design and frustrated the full joy and completion of the cosmos. Now, if a theologian came in and said that, everyone's going like, all right, you dickhead. All right.
All right, dick.
And it just goes to show that this topic in Catholicism that Chesterton was attracted to, amongst many things, this one topic that was in doctrine long ago, is something that he finds is so true in the world and that people do in practice anyways. You want to get more into that and what you thought about how he showed that people do this in practice when a prideful person comes into the pub, comes into that public house.
Just the concept of taking certain individuals that maybe like do practice maybe the other sins of lust, jealousy, all these things, envy. I mean, and so the local guy at the pub who is just kind of always on his luck, always down on his luck, maybe making a ton of wrong decisions about life, doesn't always pick the right career, maybe is a little lazy, maybe is, kind of stupid, shouts off at the mouth but doesn't know what he's saying. All these things, the other people can kind of have like some sympathy toward him of like, yeah, that's just Jerry. Hey, Jerry's a little bit,
He's a loose cannon.
He's a loose cannon. And you kind of defend him, even though he's not the greatest. But you defend him a little bit. Jerry's still around because ultimately Jerry can still be a good time sometimes. Even the local thief of like, yeah, John, he's just a little bit of a sticky fingers. And so it's not that we feel bad for him.
He stole from my nana. I told him don't do it again.
Yeah. But taking these larger examples, and then the more universal truth that we kind of all understand is like the person who comes into the room and is incredibly prideful, and the other people in the patrons will say, like, who do you think you are? Who invited the Lord Almighty here? And that person wants to be like people want to excise as soon as possible. And any of the other negative qualities of human nature combined with pride, it's like that's the first person people want gone.
Yes. And
so in practice, pride is the one thing that other people cannot really tolerate.
Yeah, and that my immediate response in my head to that was, yeah, that is something that we do socially as social animals. That's what we do. And I'm curious why he takes this theological, this religious context into it, because I'm saying in my head, well, of course we don't want to be around those kind of people. It brings up red flags in our brains. And he immediately addresses that, and he says, by the current modern theories, and modern being 1920s, 30s back then, by the current modern theories of social or antisocial action, it will not be at all easy to say why he should be such a monster. And sorry, coughing. But what he goes on to explain about the modern science and is trying to explain this derision that we have toward a prideful person. He addresses this later on after talking about the examples of, hey, look at the lustful person, look at the slothful person, look at the examples that Rich and I just brought up. What he talks about morality in the modern sense, the modern morality is more social and practical. And he talks about, and I'll quote him, says, the spiritual idea of the evil of pride, especially spiritual pride, was dismissed as a piece of mysticism not needed by modern morality. On the assumption that we need care for nothing except making other humans beings happy, this is quite certainly the thing that will make them unhappy. The practical case against pride as a mere source of social discomfort and discord is, if possible, even more self-evident than the more mystical case against it as a setting up of the self against the soul of the world. So he says right there that the practical and modern science explains, it's very self-evident that through social Darwinism, that very clearly there's a practical case against pride, that look, there's this social discomfort, this social discord that you feel when a prideful person's in the room. So of course our animalistic brains are going to be off-put by that. So there of course there's a social reason for this. And him addressing that, did you garner out of that? Were you glad he brought that up? Because I
yes, because I've heard the religious context of often the pride of man to place himself above God type of deal, or to worship false idols, to believe that man is above the supreme being, and it's about idealizing and egoizing the self above all. And so like I understood the mystical side of that, like I get that. But the more practical evolutionary type of deal, like why is there friction there? Right. And at the very beginning of this, just explaining that it's there and that it's something that we all kind of intuitively know, but we don't form into words. We don't really call that prideful very often, or we don't use that word, or at least we don't connect that word with the other uses of the word. And so it gets so confusing. So when you talk about the idea of pride, people will be off-put by thinking they don't want to think themselves prideful, and you talking about it that way makes it feel like it is, even though the term is more about placing yourself above basically everyone. And that makes sense.
Yes. And we haven't gotten to mainly the conclusions in this, but I have to say, I think if I didn't say this earlier, I don't know if this was off camera or on, but this did help me explain and put into perspective for me, not just using the word proud of you, son, I'm proud of you, or when you're saying that to somebody else, but it made me understand examples of why an action can feel like it's good versus feel like it's bad. And he explains in words what I couldn't in my head about when you're doing something for somebody else. I'll give this little side tangent and then we'll come back into it. But I've sometimes when I'm driving on a road or walking by, you see homeless people nearby, and sometimes it comes into your head. Most of the time, it's do I have food to give or should I give money? Comes in the head. And sometimes when I'm driving by, whether I did give or did not, sometimes I will convince myself out of it strangely because I'll maybe I'm having a bad day or something's going on, and I will convince myself and go like, okay, giving money right now, I'm thinking in my head and going, I kind of want to do it because it would make me feel good about myself. I don't know if other people have that thought, but sometimes when going to do it because something's going on in my day or something like that, and it's making me want to give money, and I'm trying to genuinely think through my thoughts and go, here, am I doing this out of the goodness of my heart? Like I want their day to be better, right? And I'll sometimes go like, if I give money, I kind of want to do it, so I'm like, oh, look at me, look, I did a good thing. Now I can stand up with my chest high for the rest of the day. And when I was talking to Dom, our friend Dom, he gave a great analogy and example, which ties in with what Chesterton is saying about pride here. And he was saying he made a joke in, I don't know, elementary or high school back in the day. He made a joke, everybody was laughing, and all of a sudden he considered himself funny. He was a funny person. And he was like, oh, I am funny. That's great. And then every time he would say a joke, they just wouldn't land. And he wasn't making funny jokes anymore. And he used this psychological hack, if you want to call it or not. I thought it was a really smart way to put this. He said, instead of him saying that I am funny when making people laugh, he more so says, I need to make others laugh. And that's
I need to say something funny. I am not funny.
Yeah. It's more so so in any sense of the word, instead of saying, hey, I'm funny, look at me, it's more so because laughing gives others joy. Oh, I should strive and I need to be funny because that is something that makes others happy. Rather, as soon as you internalize it and go, I am funny, that's where pride starts to get involved. And like you think about that with anything else you do. So reading and storytelling for me, why I think I'd like to write a book, for example, is hopefully this is the case for people. Instead of writing because, yes, I want to be an author, but it's like, oh, I want this, whether it's legacy or you want to publish something, you do these things or whatever you do, whatever your vocation is, rather than thinking about it like that, think about it as I need to tell a story because I think it will give others something. It's that self-indulgence thing versus you feeling you need to give something otherwise. And I thought that was good because I feel you can get so prideful when you start to see this pattern of, oh, other people think I'm funny. Yes, I am funny. Other people think I'm smart. Yes, I am smart. Because you let the opinions of the masses through confirmation bias consistently form this personality that can turn into a big ego. And I thought he put that really great. But thoughts on that, because going into this pride talk, Chesterton explains this point of view, and that's what a big thing I garnered from this as he was explaining what pride is from Dom and from this.
I completely agree. There's so many. I remember when I was doing much worse in life than I was now, of focusing and thinking that the solution would be focusing on the identity of, well, I need to be X, I need to be Y, and so what do I have to do to make myself this? And slowly the actual thing that fixed it was stop focusing on myself. And
yes,
again, it's the more I can be a representative of the things about my life and my past and things about me and things that I do, but the things I do are not me. The things I do are what I do, and just always thinking of, instead of trying to be a financially successful person, I just think of what better value could I give to other people? Instead of like, how do I make more money? It's, well, how can I give more? And it's all of those, like the more value I can give to others, that's the ultimate end. Mm-hmm. And therefore I also do have more money than I used to have. And same thing with a bunch of different aspects of life. Stop trying to have an identity of like, the only thing you own is your name, and even that I share with my dad. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the more, I just remember
poor
how
Chris is out
how
there.
much.
How many Chris's are there in the world?
Oh, jeez,
I feel Austin's semi-unique, so I feel somewhat. Hey, that's
it's not that unique.
more than rich.
I haven't come across that many riches.
We'll look the stat up later.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see who's more unique. Who has a bigger ego?
Yeah, but no, the big thing about focusing less on who you are as a person and just what you could do for others.
Well, you need to.
What you need to, and just if you start looking yourself in the mirror inside your own head and start like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I want to be this, I want to be that. It's just the wrong frame of mind, and it's no matter what you do, it leads to unhappiness. And so I knew that as a just generally, I didn't have the words for it, and I didn't really call it prideful, but I just noticed of focusing on the actions of what I could do for others was better.
Yeah, and in return, like you said, makes you richer as well. It helps you.
The goals in my life are, you could phrase it in a way of things I want to accomplish in life, of what I want to do for me. And the way I don't see it that way anymore, my goals are far more about in service. I want to do X, I want to be here so that I could service others in a different way better.
Yeah.
Of why do I want more money? Why do I want a better job? It's so that I could actually provide for a family. That's the point. What do I have to do to provide for a family? That. And so I'm going to do it. And all these different aspects. Why do I want to be in better shape? Not for myself. It's
so you can go on magazines.
So I can go on magazines. Exactly. So I can grace the presence.
The bald representation would be awesome.
So I can make the bald men feel slightly better about
you
themselves.
next to Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Next to...
I want to join my bald brothers on the cover of magazines.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, but no, that's something I learned that I didn't really put into words.
Yeah.
Especially this essay put it into better context for me.
It put it beautifully as well with exactly what you're talking about, those wants and needs. All the stories we're reading behind us, a lot of the character-focused ones, a character has a want. And just like in the real world, we have wants. We have these hedonistic tendencies to do things that we feel there are desires. There are base animalistic instincts, whatever they may be. And we have these constant wants. And then what the way to fight against pride is to constantly ask that. Not what do I want, what do I need to do? And that is always outside of yourself. That is always interacting with others. Reading this essay is beautiful because what Chesterton's writing in itself is something he needed to say so that we could hear and learn from. That's why I love storytelling so much as well. It's an author communicating to you something that hopefully comes from the heart, and it was something that bettered the world in a way.
How much is that this kind of idea has significantly helped at least me in conversing with other people, of just interacting with other people with less pride, in the sense of specifically the mindset of talking with someone and instead of asking them what they mean, just thinking what they mean and going, oh, you mean this. And then when they try to correct you, you go, no, you actually mean this. And having this sense of ego that you know more about someone else's opinion than them, you take that out. And it's like, no, it is about it. The conversation is about my understanding of you and trying to what do you mean? And that is, and the moment, at least for me, of I've insufficiently done this conversation. I have failed in some way, is if I don't understand the other person.
You should at least try to understand them.
If I don't understand where they're coming from, if I can't conceptualize their point of view, then my argument is lacking. My ideas are lacking. I can't have a firm opinion if I don't understand the other person. Right. And it just makes me, whenever I catch myself with that, of man, I cannot see that other person's point of view, I go, then I have not thought about it enough yet. I need to think further. What needs to change in our argument to actually, for at least me to understand them.
Exactly.
And so that made my life a lot happier when I did that.
Yes. It genuine curiosity and thinking that somebody you're talking to, always kind of coming in with more humility, which we can also talk about how there can be pride and humility as well. As you're talking about the coward, if you bow so low that you do a 360, then you're standing again. you can it's a circle, not a line.
That's an exercise.
It's yoga. It's called the downwards upwards giraffe. I don't know. Okay, back to the point.
I'm imagining someone doing the splits on raised bars and just arching down and then rotating themselves back up.
That would be one majestic move. I could not do that with my loins. That's certain. Okay, so when Chesterton went on he addressed what the modern reason, and the social and practical reason that we are all off-put by pride. I was so glad he addressed this, because it is true. You have to acknowledge the evolutionary science way of explaining this, as well as his religious point of view of God is the supreme being, and it makes a lot of sense as well to see that we are human beings, and how can we have the biggest ego if there's someone above that we should be praying to? So his explanation then goes on to explain, though, about this moral objection in our consciousness, in the natural way we convey ourselves. He says, we rarely hear very little about its pride in modern literature and ethical theory. He notes, and he says that society, in the modern sense, which he's talking about in the 20s again at this time, he says, indeed, a great deal of modern literature and ethics might be meant specially for the encouragement of spiritual pride. Scores of scribes and sages are busy writing about the importance of self-culture and self-realization, about how every child is to be taught to develop his personality, whatever that may be, about how every man must devote himself to success, and every successful man must devote himself to developing a magnetic and compelling personality, about how every man may become a superman by taking our correspondence course, or in the more...
I loved that.
That, yeah.
Oh my God, 100 years later, and it's still spot on. Oh, Lord.
Literally, he says in parentheses, by taking our correspondent course. Things are the same.
It's the exact...
Humans are the same. I am convinced that the labels we put on the Enlightenment versus the Renaissance, the Renaissance is literally a resurgence, right?
Yes.
All these labels we put on history have all been addressed in ancient Greece and ancient China. And it was all said, and now we are just regurgitating things that philosophers from thousands of years ago have said, and that... Anyways.
We keep having to, how many times do we have to keep teaching you this lesson, old man?
Come on. And so, yes, he says, by taking our correspondence course, or in the more sophisticated and artistic type of fiction, how one specially superior Superman can learn to look down on the mere mob of ordinary supermen who form the population of that peculiar world. Modern theory as a whole is rather encouraging egoism. So he says that although we have this tendency and that we practically act this way, the modern morals seems to encourage this egoism that we all have. Thoughts? How incredible is that? That the little parentheses of, you got to take our correspondence course, of course.
Yeah. Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew Tate exists now, existed then, and will always exist. Andrew Tate is eternal.
They've always been there.
They've always been.
And this is something too I looked up just to make sure, because he used the terms egoism versus egotism with a T. Difference here being egotism with a T refers to the excess talk or thought of oneself. When you have this self-importance. If you're an egotistical person, person's being egotistical, they often are self-indulgent. Look at me, woe is me, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Egoism without the T is, more in the philosophical sense, is the theory that self-interest is the foundation of morality or the primary motivator of human action.
I watched a video by Alex O'Connor years ago at this point of talking about how the central question being is, can anybody ever do something truly for someone else? Is there anything that is not self-indulgent in some way that even our acts of charity is to make ourselves feel better. And
The homeless example, right?
the central tenet of egoism, of just that our morality is focused on ourselves, and that it is about self-pleasure, all these like self-actualizations.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, how the fact that that's still true today, like that has not changed, and this is essay written in the 20s.
Human nature.
Yeah.
We're talking about humans and fundamental things that do not change, or at least can be ever present. You could look 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and we're talking about these same things.
I mean, how many times do you hear people like, oh, you need to find yourself, and you need to, go on a journey of self-exploration, and all these ideas about trying to find your identity and your place in the world. Yeah, it's all the same. And again, it's putting into words far more eloquently than I could ever do myself of why I've always been a little bit adverse to it. Like it's always a little bit cringy to me of I'm going to go to Italy to find myself. I'm like, who are you going to find there? Really? You're going to see some cool stuff.
Why'd you pick Italy?
It's a good place to go.
Okay.
People like going there.
I'll accept that. Because I'm going to come out with my egotistical, I'm Italian, baby.
Yeah.
Which he talks about.
He talks about of the perversion, perversion of patriotism, of like, there is a good type of patriotism. And
I love how he words it.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's so good. Do you want to skip to that and then go back?
Yeah. Very much JFK just ripped off Chesterton.
Which quote are we talking about?
We'll read the Chesterton quote, and I will read.
Okay, want to build it up or skip there?
Let's do it now. Let's talk about
go to the end and then come back. Okay, we'll come back to the middle where he's talking about the modern morality, because he does make a caveat after that point. Okay, let's skip to the patriotism part of this. Okay, this is the yes, here it is. Okay, this is the last paragraph, I believe, of the essay.
Yeah,
where he says, "This is one of 1,000 things in which I have found the Catholic Church to be right." And he's talking about pride. "When the whole world is perpetually tending to be wrong, and without its witness, I believe that this secret, at once a sanity and a subtlety, would be almost entirely forgotten among men." Now here's where he starts to get into pride, and in English pride. He's also talking about this specifically. Think of when he's talking about this between World War I and World War II. Okay. "I know that I, for one, had hardly heard of positive humility until I came within the range of Catholic influence and even the things that I love most, such as liberty and the island poetry of England, had in this matter lost the way, and were in the fog of self-deception. Indeed, there is no better example of the definition of pride than the definition of patriotism. It is the noblest of all natural affections, exactly so long as it consists of saying, 'May I be worthy of England.'" Key word there. "It is the beginning of one of the blindest forms of Pharisaism, when the patriot is content to say, 'I am an Englishman.' And I cannot count it an accident that the patriot has generally seen the flag as a flame of vision, beyond and better than himself, in countries of the Catholic tradition, like France and Poland and Ireland, and has hardened into this heresy of admiring merely his own breed and bone and inherited type, and himself as a part of it, in the places most remote from that religion, whether in Berlin, or Belfast." This is crazy. Okay, so in short, if I had only one sermon to preach, it would be one that would profoundly annoy the congregation by bringing to their attention the permanent challenge of the church. If I had only one sermon to preach, I should feel specially confident that I should not be asked to preach another. So him saying that there is a bit predictive, which is crazy, that he says the pride you see in places such as Berlin.
To be fair, hot off the presses.
What's that?
Hot off the presses between.
So true. It's hot off the presses, but World War II hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But World War I had.
Yes.
So, but seeing that, he's saying that this patriotism, the pride, the good kind of patriotism, the good kind of pride is seeing, am I worthy? Hey, I'm a part of this group. You look at, for example, if you say, I'm proud to be an American, you look at America and go, I'm proud to be a part of this country that has these special people, that has done amazing things in the world, however you want to put it, and look, landed somebody on the moon. Look at this establishment of liberty, whatever ideal you want to hold on to. and seeing, oh, I'm a part of the same country that has people like this that I look up to, right? I'm a part of the bigger thing, the greater thing. Versus the bad kind of pride is going, because I'm American, because I'm German, I'm better than other people, and I am this. These are my blood and bones, and therefore it's more the self-indulgence of, oh, I'm American.
Yeah.
And that makes you better rather than am I worthy to be Englishman, American, etc. And looking at that again, it goes back to what we're discussing of whether you are saying, hey, what do I need to do versus what do I want, and what is good about me? Am I a funny person? Or do I find myself funny? Do I find myself as this blindly patriotic, egotistical American? Oh,
While you're talking, I'm just bringing up the quote so I don't butcher it.
Yes, what was the JFK quote in there? So I kind of ranted on about what he's saying about
I know the
patriotism.
words, but I don't want to actually butcher it.
Was it in there, or was it a different part of the essay? Do you recall? As you're looking it up, JFK, what good? You're saying he took this right from Chesterton.
I'm just saying that it's I don't want to. I know the words, and yet I would butcher them if I didn't actually pull it up.
Yes.
You know, I'm saying, my fellow Americans, ask not what you can do for your, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
That is
patriotism. Very much the patriot, like, what am I worthy for my nation, not the other way around.
Right.
Yes.
That I didn't even think of that when reading this. That's a good callback. Yes. Yeah.
I think, John F. Kennedy, big Chesterton fan, really.
Now, I'm sure other people have said this.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think about that takeaway from patriotism and how pride's connected with that? Especially when Chesterton was living here, this was the issue of his time.
Yeah, I mean, I do find
nationalism.
There's some nuance to it of being proud of your nation and necessarily striving to be worthy of your history and the place that you belong. All of these things are great. And like there is something about, like, there is a nuanced difference there, but it also doesn't mean the opposite of, to be worthy of our nation and to, like, everyone is. So, like, the fact that, someone who's Japanese is like, oh, may I be, they could say they're Japanese too. And so
what do you mean by that?
I'm just trying to, like, there is such thing as cultural identity of not just what service you do, but it also is part of history. And there's an interesting nuance. I wouldn't think it goes full global order of, like, we're all one person, but it's definitely.
What do you mean?
I'm trying to get at the fact of, just because you are separating yourself of, like, taking the nation and making it yours rather than trying to elevate yourself to the noble idea of the nation, doesn't mean that your borders don't exist. And, this whole concept of global world order of, like, kind of like everyone is basically anyone. I think that's basically what I'm trying to get at, is, like, the individual of one is not. I couldn't go to England immediately and just, like, I'm Englishman. I'm like, no, not yet. The right mentality would be, I hope to be worthy of being an Englishman, but ultimately that doesn't just make me so.
Oh, so you're,
like,
saying
there is something to a history and a people and the country. That's the thing.
You're talking about ethnicity.
Is a history. Yes.
Like, okay, so, like, for example, I'm Italian, right? So
yes.
My ethnicity, I can't be Japanese.
Yeah.
I can't be ethnically Japanese.
And
there's a difference between the
right attitude if you were to immigrate to Japan would not be, like, to demand of others to call you Japanese. It would be, I have come to this great nation, and I hope to be worthy of
these fake-ass noodles. Come back to Italy. That's exactly what it's on the bucket list. I need to go to Japan. Okay, yeah.
It's a very pretty country.
But going to Japan and
that's the correct attitude to have, is, am I worthy for this nation I've come to? And it's the same thing of trying to
when I was
trying to make yourself a part of its history rather than take its history for yourself.
Yeah, that
was my thought through it.
got when I was reading this, I was thinking, for example, of what labels do you put on yourself? What is your self identity to? How do you view this? And I say it. I'm not Italian as in the country of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Italian because my nanny and nonno are at like half Italian in that way. And seeing that in that way, I was trying to think about when he was talking about patriotism of, hey, can you say, hey, I'm proud to be an American and Italian, a man with a podcast? Like, look how, oh God, if anybody is ever proud of that, that's a dangerous person.
Yeah, no, that's...
This is self-flagellation. We are, what is that called in the Black Plague? Is that self-flagellation? What would they do?
It is.
You just whip themselves? Yeah. That's what we constantly do. So with something like that of, hey, can I say, he's my nanny and nonno, or I am proud to be Italian? What does that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said something to me in the past. I don't know if on camera we've talked about it, but when you go to another country or you're in another place and people will look at you and put you in boxes like, okay, that's a man in his 20s. He's, you could pass as an Englishman. You're just plain.
I'm the pastiest of whites.
Yes. So whatever you are, people will look, stereotype, and you say, oh, I want to be a good representation of others that look like me. Because people can stereotype and look at you or look down at you, whatever it might be. So Americans can have a bad reputation abroad. So when you go to another country as an American being a tourist for a week, not throwing something on the ground and littering, for example, isn't just a bad representation of you as a person, but now people will associate, look at that American who came into this country for a week and just threw trash on the ground. And you represent more than just yourself. When you're doing something, because people will look at you. If you need
a better example, not to litter, it's not just because who cares what some stranger thinks about you individually? You're never going to see again. Who cares? Like, you and them are going to have no further interaction. But if you consider it I am a representative of all of the aspects that they see in me. I am a representative of being American. I'm representative of being young. I'm a representative of being white. I'm a representative of being bald. All the things you could point on me.
And I am a representative. You want to be worthy of the stuff. Like, hey, I want to be worthy representative of somebody in my 20s. Like, I don't want people to look down at 20-year-olds like, look at that stupid 20-year-old.
I want people to see my actions as a positive example of everything I may represent.
Yes.
And that's it's a good way to be a tourist. In general, it makes me sad when I see other Americans act like fools overseas. And it's like, you're making us all look bad, man. Stop it. Stop trying to order cheeseburger at the bazaar. Please, for the love of God.
And to fully stereotype, Japanese tourists, I've always come across, have always been very cleanly and appreciative. And so I always have this stereotyping now of going, well, when I go to Japan, I have this assumption, and I've heard that it's so clean and that it's just such a nice place, because I then think of go ahead.
And if I were to move there, I would, my impulse, my drive would be like, I should be worthy of this nation and this people, not like, oh, they need to accept me, and like, I demand to be called. I will take this history. I will attempt to be worthy. This
needs a couple more oil rigs in here. Come on.
Let's bring it in.
Let's American
boys.
Round them up.
We need a good oil rig off the coast of that island.
So, this entire essay really just made me wow. Oh, by the way, 5 stars is my rating for the essay. I don't know if we put on my rating is 5 stars.
Yes.
Floored me. So, do we want to loop back into the modern practices he was talking about? Okay. Going back there, he was talking about how modern theory as a whole is rather encouraging egoism. Mm-hmm. That point about how although in practice we don't like that these other people come into the bar and pub and are prideful, we don't like that. But why do we seem to encourage this self-pride? Do you first agree with that assumption he's making, or the observation he's making, that modern ethics at the time, but maybe we can just extrapolate to today, is encouraging pride and egoism?
Yeah, in general. I mean, we both went through college.
We both went through life.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I mean, the idea of modern philosophy and different intellectualism, hell, even we brought up, and I believe it'll come out at some point when after this we'll be talking with somebody about the death of the author. I think it's a bit more of egoism, of the pride of like being the authority of what truth is of yourself.
That's the author?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I just mention it because it's relevant. But
If you mention that's the author, I'm going to go another 5-hour rant. Don't get me going. I'll go.
I mention it because I needed to, like, for this conversation.
Okay.
But that conversation is separate and will be somewhere else.
That was such a fun, the 5-hour chat we had. That's on Patreon only. But
yes.
We need to talk about it again. I would love to. I love that conversation.
I have a quote here that
go ahead.
I really liked I really like this one here.
Yep.
Pride consists in a man making his personality the only test. Instead of making the truth the test, it is not pride to wish to do well or even to look well according to a real test. It is pride to think that a thing looks ill because it does not look something characteristic of oneself. And ultimately being, I am the final decider of things. It's kind of been emblematic of my thoughts on spiritualism and religion in general, of the strongest argument for me believing in God is ultimately thinking, who the fuck am I? Like, do I really think that I have the final authority on whether God exists or not? Like, I'm a dumbass. Like, I shouldn't be the one to decide these things. Do I really think I'm smarter than Chesterton? Am I smarter than Aristotle? Am I smarter than not Aristotle, but I'm also not smarter than Aristotle. But
you are smarter than Plato, you'd say, though. You don't like Plato.
I don't like Plato, but separate conversation.
Neither here nor there, right?
Honestly, maybe I should revisit. That was my college days. Or maybe I should revisit Plato. Maybe I'll appreciate it a little bit more.
Maybe you were going
maybe
I was
egoism. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Egoizing.
Probably.
Yeah.
I probably just didn't understand. That's the real thing. But no, St. Thomas Aquinas, am I really smarter than him? No, I'm not. So why do I get to decide if God's real? Like, that's silly. That's silly of me to think that I should believe myself over these other smarter individuals.
So why haven't you believed?
I don't know. It's about practice. I don't know. I'll find out one day. Or not. I don't know.
On this journey. And obviously there's intelligent people like Alex O'Connor, who you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
He might be one of the reasons I haven't converted, because he's such a smart and intelligent on the atheist spectrum. And there's plenty of philosophers as well you could point to.
But a popular YouTuber.
Yeah, popular YouTuber who I refer to a lot on here because I think he's so genuine in his pursuit of truth and honesty. And those type of people should be elevated. You should consume content from people like that. He's another Chesterton and Alex O'Connor. I'd love to see them in a conversation. AI can do it. So yes, looping back to him saying that modern society encourages egoism, but he then he goes on to say this. But we need not be alarmed about that. Modern practice, being exactly like ancient practice, is still heartily discouraging it. The man with the strong magnetic personality is still the man whom those who know him best desire most warmly to kick out of the club. The man in a really acute stage of realization is a no more pleasing object in the club than in the pub. Even the most enlightened and scientific sort of club can see through the Superman and see that he has become a bore. It is in practice that the philosophy of pride breaks down. Because our moral instincts, he goes on to explain, our moral instincts and our mere experience of modern humanity, that's what answers the modern heresy. So we still practice in a way we don't like pride, even though we seem to preach pride at times, or we encourage this kind of egoism that you see. He gives a practical example of this, and he says, I jumped the gun. We already talked about this. Sorry, because I was going in sequential order here. We already talked about egoism versus egotism.
I'm sorry.
I jumped because it was the egoism versus egotism thing. So we already covered that. But that whole point about egoism, he makes a really, I've never heard it put this way before. The philosophy of egoism, where it goes back to us being selfish, and that's where you brought up Alex O'Connor saying, is anything ever actually altruistic? Is anything that we do ever really for somebody else? Alex O'Connor would say, for example, take even the most extreme act of altruism. Take the firefighter who goes in a burning building and saves a child. Mm-hmm. And Alex O'Connor makes the good point of, well, what do you hear from those firefighters after they go and save that child? A lot of times they'll say, I couldn't live with myself. I had to do it. just had to. I couldn't live with myself otherwise. And and then people will clap and cheer and go, wow, you saved a life. Now, the egoism side of that and looking at morality from that perspective is, well, isn't that, break it down and be bare bones about it. Isn't that selfish in the end of you had to do it because you couldn't live with yourself, of you helped, as dire as the situation was, you helped them because it gave you you had your moral compass. You couldn't live with yourself without doing so.
Yeah.
Could you break everything down like that? Do you have any thoughts for or against that, or what do you think, and how do you practice?
Off the jump of that,
Yeah.
My gut is no.
Gotcha.
I do think there is such thing as charity, and that if you break everything down by it's a reason I'm not much of a the whole concept of free will determinism of all we are is electrons and just firing. I ultimately don't really believe that, in the similar vein of, the firefighter that saves the child, and their answer is, I couldn't live with myself otherwise. I'm not going to call it egotist. What their thought is, my priority is the other. My priority is to do something for someone else, and ultimately it doesn't define them. It's not they don't say, oh, I did it because I'm a fireman, or they did it because someone needed help and I could do it, and therefore I did. That is noble. That is the opposite of pride. And so at least my thought on it. But I understand the logical argument behind.
Yeah, the fireman is doing something they feel they need to do to give to that other person, to save that person.
Mm-hmm.
That feels outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And the egoism perspective, so this is how Chesterton describes it, which I never heard it like this. It makes it seem, he puts it in a way that makes it seem extreme. And I go, okay, that's an interesting way. So he says this: egoism. It is that condition in which the victim does 1,000 varying things from one unvarying motive of a devouring vanity, and sulks or smiles, slanders or praises, conspires and intrigues, or sits still and does nothing, all in one unsleeping vigilance over the social effect of one single person. So if you want to replay that, I won't repeat it again, but replay that or look up in the essay and see that specifically. Egoism, as described by the philosophy of it, it's selfish, self-centered. The way he describes it is basically somebody can do 1,000 different things with, no matter what your action is, again, praising or slandering, sulking or smiling, doesn't matter. You have thousands of varying things, but it all comes back to one unvarying motive, and that is selfishness.
Yes.
Right. And that is what egoism is. And being described that way, he makes a case to show, yes, logically, again, you understand the point about even the extremes of the fireman going out and saving that child, how it can be explained from the skeptic that, hey, it still is human nature, we still are selfish in a way. But he describes it in a way that makes you go, that's a tougher thing to defend. It's tough to defend because you're making a thesis saying that if that is only what we are, if there's no possible way to be altruistic, you're saying every single action ever comes back to one unvarying motive. And although I understand the logic, it just makes it tougher to defend. And I liked hearing it in those words.
Especially that if it all comes back down to that motive, that there's a lot of avenues that a lot of choices people can make in their life where that, if the only motive is selfishness, mm-hmm. there are multiple paths people could take that would be more selfish and would lead to greater joy for that individual, and yet people don't take it. People still can do the charitable thing, can do the kind thing for others, even if it gives them the momentary pleasure of, oh, I'm nice to someone. But how truly long does that last, really? Rather than taking the selfish option and leading a more materially rich life. So, yeah, I personally don't think so. I think people can be altruistic.
Yeah, I'm glad, because I'm giving you much charity here. My time, yes. I'm giving you.
You are so generous. You spend a lot of time with me, and it's really what I need in the week. I know I'm the charity case. I get it. spend an hour or two with Richard. Make sure do a nice wellness
Is he taking
check.
his medicine?
Is he taking his
Your
medicine?
parents and I talk. I check in on you.
We joke that like this is my apartment in my library. Really, he comes sees me in the
It's asylum.
This is a really nice padded library.
It's a great asylum, and
we get to see
the
how
workers
much
outside are great to you.
They are nice.
They're very kind. Okay.
If you sometimes hear like scratching at the door, that's not my cat trying to get in. It's another inmate that's having an episode.
It's Hannibal.
Yeah.
Okay, so he describes egoism, and he says, "What does modern society have to say about this?" And I'll quote him again so that we say the good, beautiful words and then dumb it down to what we think. He says, "It is amazing to me that in the modern world that chatters perpetually about psychology and sociology, about the tyranny with which we are threatened by a few feeble-minded infants, about alcoholic poisoning and treatment of neurotics, about 100 things that are near the subject and never on the spot. It is amazing that these moderns really have so very little to say about the cause and cure of a moral condition that poisons nearly every family and every circle of friends." End quote, which is pride. So he continuously makes this strong thing, which maybe I'm pre-inclined already to believe this, but he makes a good argument, backs up why it is so pervasive, and pride does seem to be that worst vice, that worst sin, that the thing that deteriorates all other things. And maybe it's his beautiful prose as well. He keeps packing a punch in a way like that goes, yeah, Chesterton. Yeah.
I did have another quote for something that I found one of the statements kind of funny, but it's another nature of how we at least judge things in the world, and rather than it's a follow up to kind of the idea of the ultimate test being our own personality rather than seeking the truth. Now, in the general clouding of clear and abstract standards, there is a real tendency today for a young man, and even possibly a young woman, to fall back on that personal test simply for lack of any trustworthy impersonal test. No standard being sufficiently secure for the self to be molded to suit it. All standards may be molded to suit the self, but the self as a self is a very small thing and something very like an accident. Hence rises a new kind of narrowness that exists especially in those who boast of breath. That is, there's a basic concept of even logic, of how people use the concept of logic, of it's not using it to find the truth, but very often used as a way to convince the self. Instead of, make me a convincing argument, not explain yourself and like mutually try and find the truth. It's more of it's a game of dominance to, I am the final authority and you must ultimately, please King the Lord. And there's something to that, and how many times where ultimately the truth or a true objective test doesn't exist, and so you default back to whatever pleases me, whatever convinces me about it is the truth. Those are wise words to live by, and always keep in the back of your head whenever you're thinking hard about something and in conversation with others.
Yeah. Can you repeat the last part of that sentence again? About just the last part of that sentence. Sorry.
Just the last sentence?
Yeah.
Hence arises a new kind of narrowness, which exists especially in those who boast of breath.
Got it. Okay, so is he boast of breath? He's basically saying those that kind of talk themselves up in that way, or what does he mean by that?
The people that maybe talk about, like, I am so wise of studying all of these different things that I, am worldly and knowledgeable. And from that, I can discern the truth. I am the arbiter because I have consumed, because I have lived a broader life, that I am an arbiter of truth, that I can decide these things.
Right.
Rather than it ultimately being you are worldly in the constant discovery of the truth, rather than like it giving you this sense of authority.
Yeah. Everything, like you said, too, why I had to read these paragraphs a couple times as well is helping you understand more of what Chesterton is saying here. That amongst you, that I don't know if you said this quote yet, because I was making sure. I was trying to read this while you were reading that quote, because this is a different one. And I think this one is, I love how he says, I'll just say the end sentence of it and not the whole buildup, but he says, the wickedest work in this world is symbolized not by a wine glass, but by a looking glass. And it is not done in public houses, but in the most private of all private houses, which is the house of mirrors. Oh, come on. And that end sentence you read as well, no, he didn't. It seems like we're telling everybody and reading something that was a thesis or 20, 25 pages, a whole book of stuff. This is all, how many paragraphs was it?
A handful.
A handful. So
like 4 pages, maybe?
If that, it's got a lot of words of wisdoms. I feel like everything he says packs a punch. I just wanted to go on a side tangent about his prose of how. Did you have any observation?
It is an odd thing that I feel the tendency that I want to reread these sentences, even though I understood the sentence the first time.
Yes.
When I read it the first time, it is not. I am not trying to reread out of lack of clarity. It's out of a lack of. I feel like I'm missing a lack of depth of like I notice like, you know, walking in a flooded street, and you step into a deep puddle, and you step back and you go, how deep does that puddle go? Like, I know it's a puddle, but
it's a great analogy.
I need to go back there and see how deep it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I kept going over of like, I understand the point, and then go, hold on a second. I think like, I need to understand this a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And fun quips. The guy is a really good writer. Obviously. You write 5,000 essays. I hope you get kind of good at it. I would hope.
His takeaway, that this paragraph sums up a lot of what we were saying about doing what you need to do for others versus what for yourself. And he sums up and says the phrase would probably be misunderstood. What was he about to say next? But I should begin my sermon by telling people not to enjoy themselves. Before I go on to explain why he says that, when you heard that, you went, "Oh, where are you going with this, Chesterton? What did you think he was? What do you think he was trying to say there? Of wait, you're telling people not to enjoy themselves. What does that mean? That's a bold thing to say when you're preaching."
Yeah, but by the time it got to this point in the essay, I got it. He made a good point.
Yeah,
he did a good job making his point.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is about being pleased with yourself and not pleased with the work and pleased with the action and pleased with what you do, and instead of trying to be pleased with yourself. Yeah, it's a lesson I feel like I stumbled into at one point in my life.
Yeah, he says, I should tell them to enjoy dances and theaters and joyrides and champagne and oysters, to enjoy jazz and cocktails and nightclubs if they can enjoy nothing better, to enjoy bigamy and burglary and any crime in the calendar in preference to this other alternative, but never to learn to enjoy themselves. Human beings are happy so long as they retain the receptive power and the power of reaction and surprise and gratitude to something outside. So instead of listening to what Rich and I said about, hey, look at these needs versus wants, again, this sums it up. Human beings are happy so long as they retain the receptive power and the power of reaction and surprise and gratitude to something outside. It's all about being external about this. That says it perfectly. And he continues by saying, so long as they have this, they have, as the greatest minds have always declared, a something that is present in childhood and which can still preserve and invigorate manhood. The moment the self within is consciously felt as something superior to any of the gifts that can be brought to it or any of the adventures that it may enjoy, there has appeared a sort of self-devouring fastidiousness and a disenchantment in advance, which fulfills all the the hell, whatever, Tartara, how do you say that? Tartarus, but Tartarian emblems of thirst and of despair. Which, wow.
I think it's a good religious and philosophical explanation of why... Oh, God, YouTube. Dumb thing.
What?
Unaliving rates through history. Hate using that word rather than the actual or whatever. You get what I mean? The point is, why do we see far higher successful rates of that today than we do through different periods of real strife in history? And it seems to be a very modern problem. I mean, there's plenty of reasons that not necessarily pigeonholed into like, oh, this is the reason for it. But
for why rates are higher? What did you mean?
Rates are higher. Like why are
they higher?
Why are
today?
unaliving rates very high in very wealthy countries? Why does that exist? And why does it sometimes go up versus why is it during great periods of strife? Like I can name a couple different examples of groups of people that have gone through the worst type of shit, and suicide rates were, there I said it. Sorry, YouTube. Are significantly lower. The reason I think maybe this is why is a good solution if you're feeling depressed, at least in my own experience, was just doing something of like, because you start thinking about yourself and you think about like, oh, I am sad. Like, and you start egoizing, and it's much harder to self-actualize and self-egoize when you're actually doing something, and the focus on action and external is far more pleasurable than thinking about yourself.
Before being those podcasters that are sending fake news out there, I remember it was brought up years ago, or what you were talking to somebody about this, Patreon, I think it was. I don't know the data behind that of, well, not just what links to higher rates, but is that the case of wealthier countries do have higher rates? Or
no. It's not a wealthy countries do have higher rates. It's looking at wealthier countries and seeing significantly high rates and sometimes higher rates in comparison to lower income nations. And then not even just modern context, but the trend of unaliving like being surprisingly sometimes on a graph going up while income goes up as well.
So you're not saying
weird,
it's more wealthier?
it's not,
or
well, no, it's the fact that it is very much not a direct correlation to like it is not directly correlated to wealth and or societal strife. And so like a standard operation, you would think, oh, when people have poor material living or going through war, going through all of these different aspects that you would think the rate would be a lot higher and it would be directly correlated. And it doesn't seem to be. There's more to it.
Whether there's a wealthy
around.
nation or a poor nation, it seems to be, there's not, you can't find a correlation of, because it's more impoverished or because wealthier, that rates are higher or lower.
Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
The rate is along the graph and it's harder to find an actual, it's clearly not just material wealth. It's not just societal violence and strife. That can't explain the answer. And so it has to be something more. I think this is something interesting about it, of why people can be, going through hard times, and yet if they're doing something hard together, you're going to be less likely to feel negative thoughts about yourself, because hard to do that when you're actually working, when you're living outside of your own head.
Do you think what he's saying here and what inspired that portion of it's that moment that the self feels as if there's something superior, him saying human beings are happy so long as they retain the separate power and the power of reaction and surprise and gratitude to something outside. So you're saying that's kind of an antidote in a way, or just about feeling more fulfilling of yourself if you are giving in general? Or I guess what's your correlation to maybe this what Chesterton is saying, and kind of getting out of what he is saying to kind of getting out of that period of despair or getting out of this cycle of despair?
It's a simple thing of, for myself, the worst times I felt about myself was the times I had the most time on my hands. When I was most idle was when, at the exact same times, I would think most about myself rather than what I am doing.
Keeping busy.
Yeah, I mean,
doing something for others. Yeah.
Keeping busy is part of it. Like that's a solution, but I think you take that one step further of keeping busy by doing something for others. Like that's the full thing.
Getcha. Yeah, I want to be careful too because I don't know the data on this, on data
Again,
and all that stuff. So
personal experience of what we've experienced.
I don't want to I don't know the correlation. I don't know the actual rates. I do know
the only thing is I was wrong about it being far more. Like I thought that the numbers were representative of a lot of wealthier nations having higher rates than many other poorer nations, but that's not necessarily true because some poorer nations have a higher suicide rates, but others have drastically lower. It's complicated when you're dealing with global statistics.
Yeah, it's hard to just say, hey, here's the direct correlation.
But the main thing is it is complicated and it is not directly. It is not. Gotcha. It cannot solely be explained with material wealth and societal strife.
Yeah, anecdotally, just maintaining a schedule or keeping you to something that keeps you sane is good. And you're anecdotally from you being in a state of where you're thinking about yourself, and personally too, like you're thinking about yourself more, it can make you go stir crazy.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. And so he then goes to make a hard segue into this next point is where we mentioned several times that us using the word proud in language. I'm so happy to have read this essay because prior to reading this and following reading this, I very infrequently, if I ever did, it slipped in context. But I don't like using the word proud of saying, for example, hey, I'm proud of you, friend. I'm proud of you, Nicole, whatever it is. I don't like using that word because when I say it, or the feeling, the subcontext, or the way it could be misinterpreted or understood is if you're saying you're proud of someone, it could almost feel like you're the reason that they got there. If I say I'm proud of somebody, it almost takes some of the accomplishment they did and go, hey, you've done this, I'm proud of you, as if you have some sort of leash on their accomplishments.
That you are taking their accomplishment for your own rather than... Yeah.
Which the opposite of that would be, I admire what you've done. So, for example, a father says to a son, hey, I'm proud of you, kid. And that always comes across in a good way. But especially like peer-to-peer, it can sound off-putting in different circumstances. So it's always strange. We don't have a better word for it. And that's what Chesterton gets into is he talks about, hey, you hear a father say, I'm proud of you, a mother say, I'm proud of you. And Chesterton says, we really mean something that is the very opposite of pride, for it implies that the man thinks that something outside of himself is needed to give him great glory, and such glory is really acknowledged as a gift. And he also, I love that he uses this example as well. He says the comic, someone who's kind of a bit of a jokester. He says, when you walk up to a very wealthy and powerful nobleman and playfully tip his hat over his eyes, as is your custom, you are not suggesting that you yourself are above all human follies, but rather that you are capable of them, and that he also ought to have a wider and richer experience of them. And then he gives another example, But he talks about the jokester who pulls the nobleman's hat down, or father saying, I'm proud of you. These kind of acts aren't prideful in the sense that he's talking about here, the sinful, the vice kind of pride. Did that change your perspective at all when talking about the word pride?
It did. I mean, I thought the same thing as you of, just the word being are you trying to take authority or ownership over someone else's accomplishment and taking some level of self-satisfaction in it, rather than very often what you mean by it is I recognize something outside of myself and believe that it deserves more attention, more glory, and that I want to give. I want to give praise to this thing outside of myself, which, that's kind of the opposite of pride.
Yeah, certainly. And are you going to change your language at all off this, based on this?
I'll think about it. I mean, it's it's hard. What would you use? I mean, the easiest word to use is, instead of "I'm proud of you," it's like "I am happy for you," or like
I admire.
I admire you," or that. Like those are good.
I admired
words.
what you've done. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if I'll necessarily change it exactly. Because it's misunderstood. The point of communication is to be understood, and we use specific words, and speakers typically use specific words so that an audience understands them.
And if I say "I am proud of you," generally the audience would understand what I meant.
Generally, they should, yes. But some people wouldn't. In the right circumstances, people should understand when a father is saying to a son, we get it. We get what the father's doing. But in general, we speak to be understood. So if there's a better word for it, try to use that. But I've always been cognizant of that, and not mentioning this, but death of the author kind of stuff. It's just I do think it's important as far as language goes that you use things that another person would understand from you. So we don't speak in skibbities and yibbities, because then somebody's just going to go, okay, that's a crazy guy, Austin, who just is skibbity all the time.
Yeah.
Except that is understood nowadays because it's slang. So,
but yeah, the purpose of words is to be understood. And so if I say the word pride and someone doesn't understand me, then it is a miscommunication rather than someone else being able to define. Go like, well, look, you said the word pride and that means this. So that's what you meant. And it's like, maybe ask me. Maybe ask for clarification. That could work. Or I could have just done a whoopsie daisy. Ever thought about that? Maybe. I don't always speak the good words.
Not the good?
Not the good. I don't have the best words sometimes. Sometimes I don't.
Sometimes. Wow. That is very non-prideful of you.
I know.
You're
That's
admitting
humility right there.
You are admitting humility. Okay. I have this last point here. Okay, we talked about the patriotism points. This is the second to last thing in there. He talks about and touches on this. I'm going to quote something outside of what Chesterton says and then say what Chesterton says. I heard this somewhere, read this somewhere years and years ago, and I put it into my notepad. I didn't put where it was from, though. And I asked ChatGPT, and it didn't give me a completely satisfying answer because it gave me two different sources. And I went, I don't know which one it is. So sorry, ChatGPT wasn't good enough for this. But this is what the quote says. There is a species of pride in the supposed detection of fraud, which biases many in favor of skepticism. And I was, I've read that at a time, and I was like, oh, I thought that was pretty profound, or it made me think, because often as we are talking this podcast, we're trying to find truth stories of, what's an interesting discussion we can have about what we find as true. And skepticism can have this type of pride involved into it, that we're not just being questioning and skeptical in a seeking truth way, but we do it more so because it elevates our own pride. If we can detect fraud in something, if we can find chinks in the armor, that to us,
we have won. We have elevated ourselves.
Yes, because we were able to find fault in you, flaw in you. Oh, look, I was able to detect it.
The difference between inquisitive and skeptical.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is, I will harp again of why Chesterton seems he doesn't do that, and Alex O'Connor's genuinely coming from the intent of what you're trying to do is important there. And if you're coming into a conversation being an inquisitor, somebody that, not the Spanish Inquisition, just an inquisitor in general, that
Inquisitor Glock, yes.
Inquisitor Glock. Yeah. So Chesterton touches on that, and he says, now, in general clouding of clear and abstract standards, there's a real tendency today for a young man. Oh, yeah, you mentioned that portion going into this. He says, the skeptic feels himself too large to measure life by the largest things and ends up measuring it by the smallest thing of all.
Themselves.
Yes, themselves. That portion there. And he then goes into a little bit about nihilism and says, in the end, the most complete and exact sense in nothing. This is where he touches on that bit of nihilism, the bit of skepticism, and how it kind of relates to pride in that certain sense. And what do you think about that, and that skepticism and pride? And specifically what he's touching on is that that kind of, I'll use his words here. He says there's produced also a sort of subconscious ossification, which hardens the mind not only against the traditions of the past, but even against the surprises of the future. What a line. Can I say that once more just so it sounds good?
Yeah.
There's produced also a sort of subconscious ossification, which hardens the mind not only against the traditions of the past, but even against the surprises of the future.
It's the ever-present now. A skeptic a skeptic and inquisitive person can ask the same question, and it ultimately does come down to their intent. A skeptical person is asking questions to be able to poke the hole and to find the fault, ultimately believing it has to be there because no other, to basically elevate themselves. Because if they could find the fault, then they are superior. And that's the point. That's the intent behind it. Versus a inquisitive person being, I'm questioning because I'm not sure I understand. And I don't get your point. Something doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please clarify? I think this question will help me understand you better. That's a very different intent, even though it could be the exact same question, the same words. Yeah. And it does make me think of a skeptic being questioning of the past, and there is wisdom in the ages past of tradition of, I believe it is there's an analogy that Chesterton said in another essay that we read, much shorter, Chesterton's fence, basically. I think I've told you about it and other people before, but basically the idea of if you come upon a fence, one type of person will just say, oh, there's a fence in the way, I'm going to tear it down. And Chesterton says, well, no, if you find a fence in the middle of a field, first ask the question, why was this fence put in? Someone clearly put it up here for a reason. Maybe that reason's no longer necessary anymore. It's possible that this fence is no longer needed. But let's find out why first. Why was this put here in the first place? Is it still applicable now? And once you find the answer to those questions, then you can tear it down or leave it up. But that's the same ways you should handle tradition.
Or paint it, make it look prettier.
Yeah. Or you put a new coat of paint on that fence. But ultimately, that's a great way to think about tradition. There is wisdom. Tradition doesn't just come up out of nowhere of just randomly, completely useless. Wasn't useful then, won't be useful now. You should look at it why is that? Why did that appear? Mm-hmm. And then see if those same conditions are applicable today. If it isn't, then you let it go. If it is, maybe keep it around for a while.
It does ring true. This essay is proof, and other readings are proof that, again, we're dealing with similar problems today as we have in the past. You can look at wisdom in the past without blindly following it as well. Ask the question, genuinely. Be inquisitive about it and say...
The skeptical person just has to believe that themselves today is smarter than the person in the past. And that, the default assumption being, oh, it's a tradition, it's in the past, I'm better than them. And that's the skeptic's version of you have to prove to me why this tradition should still be there, rather than the less prideful example of clearly someone put this up and groups of people thought this true. Mm-hmm. What do I not understand about why? Just the assumption that maybe I'm not the arbiter of the universe and reality.
Yes, certainly. And definitely what you mean there is the prideful skeptic. Because the word skeptic can just mean you're inquisitive. I don't know the exact definition, but if you're a prideful skeptic versus a genuine skeptic or inquisitor, or however you want to put it, of a questioner, someone who's seeking truth. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I hope we did an ounce more of seeking truth in this pod episode, and that's why these essays are more fulfilling, because I think that we cover things that are it helps us learn in an egotistical way, but also hopefully gives a little ounce of something. And since we gave you this ounce of something, give us Patreon money. What else can they give us? Give us merch. Buy our merch. How hypocritical. Okay, give us more ad revenue. If you have YouTube Premium, that's cool too. We get money from that. How else can we milk them?
I don't know. You don't have we sometimes have sponsors. Sometimes buy their thing. That'd be nice.
You know how we haven't lost all of our morals yet is that we haven't lost all our morals yet because you haven't seen us come out with an energy drink quite yet.
we somewhat sometimes give a shit because we don't have a BetterHelp advertisement.
I actually tried Prime for the first time when I was back home a couple weeks ago because my grandma bought it, not knowing it was linked to YouTube or anything like that.
Yeah.
I tried it. I didn't like it.
Good.
However,
you.
I haven't had soda in 8 years.
Oh, that's also true.
I haven't had a sweet drink. I've had juice is the sweetest thing I've had. So I drink water. So maybe for me it was drinking something that had an ounce of flavor in it was just so much of a shock to my senses. So I don't know if that is not that will not be everybody's reaction. But I tasted it. I had to spit it out. It was that bad to me.
To be fair,
can we get sued for that? It's okay. It's fine. No,
that's a true story. You spit it out. Is. He also spit out a raisin, like a chocolate raisin cookie because it was too sweet for him.
It was very sweet.
It was an oatmeal raisin cookie
from Crumble Cookies or whatever the special cookie place.
Yes, but it was the oatmeal raisin cookie.
Yeah. Oh.
Your body is fine-tuned. It needs premium gasoline. You put unleaded in it, it destroys it.
My body's fine-tuned, just like the universe. Bring it full circle. Religious stuff. Okay. So did reading this as well have that was asked. Anything else you wanted to mention about it? Quotes,
No.
Something you wanted to cover?
No, nothing there.
After reading this, how much more Chesterton are we going to cover?
Get ready, boys and girls. You're about to get a lot more Chesterton videos. That's good. There's going to be a long stint of Chesterton videos. So I hope you like it because that's what we're going to do. Because ultimately it's what we want to do. And so we're going to do it.
Did this, seeing that he explains this, one of the 1,000 reasons, this seeing that the Catholic Church is correct about pride to him, does that make you an ounce closer to go, okay, I understand, and does it make you any closer to faith in the end?
A bit. It follows, it goes down the same avenue the thoughts I've had myself, and more eloquently explains what I've internalized. So, but the action step after that is speak and listen to other figures of different faiths to actually understand. And instead of trying to be like, oh, they need to convince me, I must try to understand the wisdom of these individuals and to see if I can adopt it or not. But ultimately, the purpose is try to understand them and see what happens.
I know that we're both really fascinated, and mainly it's because I'm so unread or less read in this stuff, but Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, that the Eastern philosophy in general, of course, know the basics, the tenets. I know the general zeitgeist stuff, but reading something that is the equivalent of this from one of those, like that would be something that we could cover too, that would we would go in a lot more blind with a lot less preconceived notions. That would be cool as well. I don't know, maybe there's a figure someone could tell us that is the Chesterton of any other faiths, or just the Chesterton of equivalence religions or others, or just the Chesterton of the Alex O'Connors in the world as well. But all I know is I'm a Chesterton fan.
Yeah.
Through and through. I've read one thing. He's the GOAT.
It's also not a surprise. I knew you'd love Chesterton.
Likewise. Yeah. I mean, Is this your first essay you've read of him, or have you read others that we should cover?
I've again, Chesterton's Fence. I don't know if I think that's more of a shorter topic of, I think it's fairly obvious.
Was that from something, or?
Yeah, it's basically an essay on tradition and what to do with it.
Oh, okay.
Like how should you treat it? Is it something to be tossed away by default? Is it something to be followed? Hey, my grandpappy did it, and so I'm going to do it. No. He has more wisdom than that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That could be a fun one to talk about.
It could be.
All right, that was some rambling. Hope you enjoyed.
It was. Let us know what you think down below. Are we off base? We want to deeply understand you, and so we endeavor to do that through the comments.
That was the first time. Wow.
Hmm.
You're gatekeeping a lot less. You are being a lot more open-minded. You're treating the comments with more grace. This changed you.
I would hope at this point that people kind of get that I'm making a lot of jokes and it's a person that, like, I find it funny to be authoritarian. If you don't get that I'm
you think
a
you're
little bit fun, like I'm trying to be funny.
Oh, you think you think you're a funny person? Is that how you self-identify?
I'm attempting. Yeah.
Actually, you saying that's pretty funny. Okay. All right.
Point being, we actually would like to hear what you have to say.
Yes.
It is intriguing to me. I would like to read it.
Thanks, everybody. See you next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Hold up, everybody. Okay, Rich and I were walking away from the set, and we were just talking still about the theme of pride and everything. And I was asking him, and we were talking about humility and trying to come across that even though you aren't prideful about something or internalizing that pride, how do you still come across as confident? How do you still come across as not being self-flagellating and meek? And all these bad associated things that just because you're not being prideful in the sense that we've been talking about this whole episode doesn't mean you can't be a confident person. I like to use the term, hey, strong opinions loosely held, of still being willing to change your mind on things, is at least go in with the right mindset and intentions, right? This, you haven't seen this yet, but
No.
If people know this from seeing these pod episodes, I've had a grudge against Timothee Chalamet since the dawn of time. And that little pesky Chalamet, his little theater kid ass, I have had an issue with him. And ever since I declared this vendetta 3 years ago, he's went on a streak to be the coolest person alive, which is stupid. He shows on College Game Day being just he knows ball. He's been fun. He was watching the Knicks play, and he skipped the Met Gala to watch the Knicks, and he went to a Timothee Chalamet lookalike contest in New York City. He showed up to have some fun with them. Just across, he did SNL, was funny, all that stuff. I despise it because it's making me like him. So this is a speech he gave after winning a SAG award, and I think it is a fantastic example of being confident yet not being prideful at all. And this is the type of maturity that should be displayed by my arch nemesis. My arch nemesis himself did this. So, Rich, I want you to see this and see if you agree with it, because there was some controversy online about this speech.
There's controversy about it?
There was, as in, it was the minority were saying this, but we're saying that this was very boastful. And some people were saying this was prideful. This is the whole debate about it. People were looking at this and saying Timothee Chalamet is being prideful. Look at this, right? Okay. So here it is.
You chose the best quality.
I picked the first thing.
Oh boy. Yeah, raise this up. Guess I'm just gonna talk low.
Yes.
I like him more
I'm gonna
already.
get this up. All right. Well, thank you. I was not expecting this at all. Truly. I'll start by thanking my mother, who I'm here with tonight. She has been working at Actors Equity for 40 years. The stage union.
What the hell is that accent? Is that his real accent?
That's his voice.
And I'll quickly run through this. I know the classiest thing would be to downplay the effort that went into this role and how much this means to me, but the truth is this was 5.5 years of my life. I poured everything I had into playing this incomparable artist, Mr. Bob Dylan, a true American hero, and it was the honor of a lifetime playing him. It's an honor I share with Monica, Elle, Edward, the entire cast, who in a genre doing a biopic that could be perhaps tired. Everyone gave it their all, so I'm deeply grateful to them. And lastly, I can't downplay the significance of this award because it means the most to me. And I know we're in a subjective business, but the truth is I'm really in pursuit of greatness. I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats. I'm inspired by the greats. I'm inspired by the greats here tonight. I'm as inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis, Marlon Brando, and Viola Davis as I am by Michael Jordan and Michael Phelps, and I want to be up there. So I'm deeply grateful to that. This doesn't signify that, but it's a little more fuel, it's a little more ammo to keep going. Thank you so much.
So, what did you think about that speech?
Fantastic.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that's a great speech.
It's one of my favorite award speech I've seen because he shows. You describe. I've seen this a while ago, so I want your raw reaction of him saying that.
It's being appreciative of others and understanding that he is not there on his own, but also acknowledging that he got the award for a reason. It's because he has exemplified, or other people believe that it is great, and the work that was done was of quality. And for him to try to downplay that is dismissive of the value he provided to others. Like, no, I am pursuing doing great things. That's, great. Fantastic.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was done
Great.
so classy, and he toes that line almost perfectly, because again, if he says a different word or gets into the line, it can seem prideful of, hey, he wants to be one of the greats. He is saying something that he does want that greatness, but he is so appreciative and saying he is not there, and he's striving to do that. But there is this, maybe it's not undertone, but this way of showing he wants to be like them, because he looks up to them, and he thinks those greats have given to the world in a way. Like he's inspired by them.
The tone is what they do, and wanting to do the great things that they have done
and give,
to give, rather than a Kanye West of just barging onto the stage and pushing Taylor Swift off. Go, yeah, but really, this other person, like, it just him calling himself a god, probably, maybe, a little bit egotistical.
Funniest thing he ever did, I think it was the next year at the awards. He stood up and sat back down, and you saw the horror on people's faces, going, "Not again, not again."
No, the funniest thing he's done is made that song, "I Miss the Old Kanye." God. Oh, it hurts to listen to that song.
It's funny?
It's funny and hurtful. Like, it makes me think, like, as much as he's up his own ass, as, like, he is a prideful person, there's so much truth in that song and the evidence of who he's become that I'm like, he really is something. Like, damn. Only Kanye could make that song and it be prophetic.
That's the thing too, because we're looking at celebrity status here too. I can't believe we're talking about Kanye, Timothee Chalamet in a Chesterton essay video, but arrogance is prideful, and sometimes there are the figures that are arrogant and they back it up with something of. Whether it be Kanye actually being a good musician, or what's he most known for too? Mixing, and he's mixes like no other. And
Kanye got away with a lot of shit for so long because
he was a good
ultimately,
artist, right?
Yeah, he's a damn good artist. So when he starts going off about himself being like a god of music making, it's like you go like
you do
prideful
have, like,
asshole,
a
and
lot
then
of
you
hits,
listen to like Stronger, and you're like, okay. Gold digger, you're like, I guess you're on to something, Kanye. Damn it. That statement could get me canceled. Take that one out of context. Jeez.
I won't ask you what you mean. I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
So,
God.
So there are those figures, especially in celebrity status, that are arrogant about what they do. And then the frustrating part is then, do they back it up? Are they actually good? And hey, that says something about their character, of that arrogance, that pridefulness. Does that take away from the accomplishment they did as an objective? Well, okay, they did the thing, and well, look at that art, look whatever it might be. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. Oh, is that your cat scratching? I thought it was a bird outside. Sorry, that's the person in the insane asylum.
Yes.
That's clawing in. What'd you call him, Jerry Terry? So with that,
Scary
Terry, with Timothee Chalamet's speech there, I think that is part of what we're talking about here. If that towed the line so well, it's being confident yet humble and appreciative and striving to give more. And although the closest thing to pride there is, hey, I want to be one of the greats, but I think what he means by that is I aspire to be the people that I look up to that gave. Is how I see that too. Fantastic speech. That is one of my favorites from this freaking moron that I have a vendetta against. Did you like the speech? I'm glad I had to show it to you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.